Hello, everyone, and welcome to another KnoYoBoE production where we bring you informative interviews and content focused on health and wellness. I am your host, Nicole Starling Shakir. Today, I sit down with someone who shares not just my DNA, but my diagnosis, my youngest sister. This is the first time we've shared our journeys side by side. Tune in as we explore multiple sclerosis, a silent disease that globally affects over 2.8 million people, and in the United States alone, nearly 1 million people live with the disease. What is multiple sclerosis? Commonly known as MS, it is a chronic, often disabling disease of the central nervous system. It disrupts communication between the brain and the body, and its symptoms can range from numbness and fatigue to blindness and paralysis. It is unpredictable, invisible to many, and deeply personal. So, without further ado, let me introduce our guest, Ebony Starling, assistant to the director of activities at a rehab facility in New Jersey. Welcome, Ebony. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
So we're going to jump right into it. And ultimately, let's start with us knowing what we know about MS. First off, how long have you been living with MS?
So as I've known for 4 years.
Wow. And tell me
For
what that
four
means
years.
when you say as you've known. Tell me what that means.
Okay, so when I was 29, I was diagnosed with a stroke. This out of nowhere. Had no symptoms of a stroke or anything like that, but they told me I had a stroke, so my whole right side of my body was paralyzed and everything. And then 10 years later, my doctor told me that that first sign of MS was when I so-called had the stroke. So it wasn't a stroke, it was my first sign of MS. So I really had it since I was 29, but I just found out 4 years ago.
Just rightfully diagnosed 4 years.
Basically. Right.
So,
Yes.
and this is, a rare interview, right, between us. Why do you
hmm
think now is the right time for us to share our story to the world? A unique story indeed.
Um, well, I think my story is kind of hurtful. So I
Hmm.
want to, get more people out there to, kind of know the signs and stuff because it's really not even signs or anything like that. It's just to, take care of yourself and figure out what's wrong. So it's not even about MS or anything like that, but that's what I have. You know what I mean? I'm 44 years old and I'm living with MS, but I wish I would have known when I was 29 so I would have been able to prevent things that I'm dealing with not now.
And then even with that, we know multiple sclerosis is labeled the silent disease. So therefore
Mhm.
you have a lot of people walking around in silence, misdiagnosed, like you said,
Yep.
even in your case, misdiagnosed with a stroke. Can you walk me through like what that looks like for you mentally, emotionally, physically, going through, the process of, you said, ever since 29, from initially believing the doctors and the practitioners that it was one thing, and then not until having another attack 10 years later and understanding that it is another thing mentally, emotionally, physically. How's that been for you?
Mhm. Even right now, it's still hard. Um, you about to make me cry.
Oh.
Even right now, it's still hard because it's scary because like even what I'm going through. So with my MS, and everybody has different um triggers or attacks and different attacks with MS. So it might be something with me, but your MS looks totally different than my MS. So it's like it's kind of crazy, but it's like it's for me is hurtful. So it's like, okay, when I'm 29 years old, you telling me I have a stroke. So I'm going through all the tests and all the diagnoses, and you can't find anything. You didn't look at the right thing. But I'm trusting in you as a doctor. I'm going to my doctor's appointments and I'm spending the money. I'm paying for my insurance. So it's like that's what you're supposed to do, right? But then when you do all of that, and then it's like years later, like it could have been way I couldn't be here right now. You know what I mean? God willing, You know what I mean? I just lost my vision, but that's hurtful to me. I
Right.
can't drive. I can't do the things I used to do for myself. So MS really changed my life, and at times it really like it is really different because a lot of people don't understand MS, I would say.
Looking back, do you feel race or gender had anything to do with the delay in or dismissal in your diagnosis?
So yes, I do now. Now that I found out 4 years ago, Dr. Ayeni, really loved him at Kaiser Permanente in Georgia. But he was like, they never. He was like, no, Ebony, when back when you was 29, you had a your first attack of MS, and I'm like, what are you talking about? They told me I had a stroke. He was like, that's what they told you. He was like, but as a black woman, they never tested you for this disease. And I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, because they said MS is a white woman's disease. And I'm like, well, why do I know so many black women with MS? Like, what are you talking about? So
Right.
yeah, I really do think it is that. I
Mm.
definitely do. And that's messed up. It's like you pay this money for the insurance and for these you believe in these doctors, and sometimes they be putting a band-aid on it and not really fixing you.
Was it when your vision began to actually fade where you're like, wait a second, something is not right and I need to get back in front of someone? Or were there other signs that your body was speaking to you about, or was it just specifically the vision that kind of like went? And then that's
It
when you know,
wasn't nothing else but the vision. It
wow,
wasn't
okay.
nothing else. I wasn't feeling nothing else. Like even before the stroke, everything was normal. You know
Right.
what I mean? Nothing. But I know I had just went to the eye doctor. Then these same new pair of glasses that I got, I just was able to see out of them when I left the eye doctor. And then now I started my new job, and now I can't see out of it. And I'm like, what in the world? I just went to go get my eye checked. I went back to the eye doc. The doctors, after doctors, that's annoying too. But
Mhm.
after all that, to find out it's MS, and then with you telling me that you got MS, it's like you don't even realize what MS really is until you got it.
Our symptoms and our body communicating to us was totally different. Mine was
Totally different.
2012, and I started feeling a little bit of numbness on my bottom lip. I'll never forget it. My husband told me that I had a piece of rice on my bottom lip, like in this area,
And you
and
ain't feel it.
I didn't feel any of it, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
I was like, that's kind of weird. And from there, like, you know how we call ourselves kind of like keeping an eye on it. I waited for
Mm-hmm.
maybe 5 days to see if in fact I would begin to kind of, because I just started messing around my lips, seeing, pushing it up, pushing it down, seeing if I could like get some kind of reaction to it or what have you. And I went to a neurologist, and then that's when they started doing the MRIs and things of that nature. At first, it was originally they thought it was a brain bleed, which is,
Uh-huh.
also can play a part in any kind of numbness and tingling, or things of that nature. And then it was just like within that time frame, it's just like then my fingers, like my extremities, started feeling numb and tingling. Migraines and headaches, I think, from a black woman's perspective, that is just something
Mm-hmm.
that's just in our, we just find a
Mm-hmm.
way to kind of like get through that and not really
Mm-hmm.
understand that that is
Yeah.
something that could be a way our body is talking to us to tell us that there might be something that is wrong, right? So when they
Mm-hmm.
ask you, hey, so have you had headaches? Do you get frequent migraines and things of that nature? Now you're trying to level something beyond a little Tylenol. And I'm like,
Right.
well, I do
A
every
little
once in a
bit every
while.
once in a while,
But it
right?
was,
Mm-hmm.
back then I used to get like really bad migraines, and
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't something where it was just I couldn't really kind of get to the bottom of the rhyme or reason as to why. But
Mm-hmm.
that coupled with that tingling, that was that original, those original like beginning phases and steps.
Signs.
And then
Yeah.
I remember, I did do a couple of different neurologists or what have you. And actually, I was I was actually headed to brain surgery. You don't probably remember that very well.
I do. Yeah.
Probably remember that
Yeah.
very
I
well.
do.
And from that, it was like two totally different things that were going on in my brain. One was a potential multiple sclerosis attack. The other one was what's called a Chiari malformation. And so, like in my little head, there's like two totally
Two
different
different things
things
going
that are
on.
going on, and it really took
Mm.
someone. It's funny because I call it the Haitachi 2000, right? When they were about to go in and do that big, thank God they didn't and didn't have to, but when they were about to go in and do that big surgery, on the day of surgery, head shaved and
Mhm.
everything,
Mhm. Oh
families in the
yeah.
waiting room,
Yeah.
and they realized on the Haitachi 5000
Mhm.
that it is not what we thought it was, and we do not have to thank
Hashitashi.
Hashitachi.
Hashitashi. Yes,
Thank God
yes.
we do not have to do surgery, but what it
Right.
is, multiple
Mhm.
sclerosis. And after that, I went through the process of just like the different medication that they were, throwing at me, right? And in that time frame in which I was diagnosed, and now I've had one really bad attack, which is very similar to yours, the optic
Mhm.
neuritis.
Mhm.
And that optic neuritis, I caught it very early. It is akin to a shade, like a being pulled down over your
Yep.
eyes,
Yep.
a black
Yep.
shade, and you just kind of like keep focusing and keep blinking to try and figure out like what is that? Like what in the world is going
Mhm.
on? And
Mhm.
you go in different lights. You're like, wait a second, it's not.
Yep.
It's
Yep.
really your optic neuritis, which is, I mean, your optic nerve is being attacked, and therefore the inflammation is what's causing that black shade to come down, so to speak. So I had to do
Mhm.
7 days of full IV infusion,
Was
and
it
to try.
steroids?
It was, yeah.
Cause I wish I would have caught it early and back when I was 29. Like,
Hmm, hmm.
that's what I'm saying. I wish I would have been able to have that moment of being able to take steroids or something before
Right, to
it's
get
too late, like, or whatever. Like, can I still take steroids now? I don't know. You know what I
right. And
mean?
even the impact, like I do remember them saying that with optic neuritis, within the time frame in which that's caught, it's such a very, very small window and a delicate
Yep.
window that
Yep.
the steroid treatment, the infusion, because they go straight in, the infusion is only going to do but so much. And I
Mm-hmm.
never forget that I had to do like 5 days straight. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like I was on that thing for like 4 hours. But a
Mm-hmm.
very slow, it was no promises. Then there's that, right? So even the medication that they are throwing at you, it's really to prevent the progression of the disease, in
Right.
addition to, minimizing the attacks. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of this is in God's hands anyway. And
Right.
I was just very reluctant and hesitant to kind of like start throwing medication at it or what have you. But then once the optic neuritis hit, I had to go in and get that infusion. And
Mm-hmm.
slowly but surely, because my left eye is already suspect, right? This happened to my right eye.
Well,
Yeah, this happened to my right eye. So
right.
it wasn't any promises that my right
Mhm.
eye, my vision would come back. But over time, like after that infusion and that 5 day treatment, it slowly but surely did begin to come back. So for you though, for talk to me about, and I've been with you on this journey, but talk to me and shed some light about the different tests you had to go through to try and like really, as far as your vision is concerned, to try and kind of get that back to some kind of normalcy, and the adjustments that you're having to make, in life with altered, vision.
So, the tests and stuff that I've gone through is just basically so, of course, I went to Lens Crafter. That's who gave me the prescription. That's what worked at first. And then I went back to them like, hey, something's wrong. And
Mhm.
then they said, I think you need to go see, I think, because it might be, no, they said it might be
Oh,
cataract.
cataract. Okay.
Cataract.
Okay.
I'm 39 years old.
Just adjust my prescription, fine and tune down
Right, right,
vision
but it's
exists because
like,
my
the little
nearsighted
flick
part.
You know the
Yes, the
little
black
flick
flicks.
down parts, like
Yes.
wasn't nothing they was flicking down. I could see. I'm like, flick it again. No, no, flip it around and flip it again. Like what?
Right.
Like nothing was working. So I'm like,
The ophthalmologist,
the
right?
ophthalmologist. It sure
Yes.
was.
Yes,
The
that was the
ophthalmologist, because I'm so sick of these doctors. That's why I seen first. The
uh-huh.
ophthalmologist. He said to go see him first or whatever, because I think it might be cataracts. So I went to
Right.
him and he was like, yeah, no, it's not cataracts. I think you need to go see a neurologist. And I'm like, go see a neurologist about what? He was like, I don't know. I just think it might be something more serious than
Serious.
it's not cataracts. You know what I mean? I'm like,
Because
what the?
ultimately the health of your eye with for what they were seeing was fine, right? They
That's
couldn't
what they
really,
said. They was
right.
everybody, I don't know, 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 I don't know. Somebody got to tell me something because I'm tired of going to this person. But at the end of the day, I'm not giving up. I went to after the ophthalmologist, I went to the neurologist, and the neurologist was like, he had me do a couple tests, and then he had all the different scans and stuff from the other doctors, and
Right.
he was like, and I went to this doctor's appointment of all doctor's appointment. I usually had my fiance with me. He usually was with me, but I
Mhm.
was at this appointment by myself. He was like, yeah, so I gotta tell you something. I was like, what you gotta tell me? I was real cool with him and everything. And
Right.
he was like, yeah, so you had multiple sclerosis. And I was like, you said what? He said you got multiple sclerosis, and I kind of like, what? Like laughed it off, and he was like, no, but
No, very
you ain't
serious.
just had multiple sclerosis. You been had multiple sclerosis
Right.
since, you know what I mean? When he told me that, I broke down and cried like he was my whole mom in that day and going doctors. Like I really like broke down because I'm like, dang, y'all ain't even give me a chance.
Right. What's
That's how I
interesting
really
is the
felt like.
time and what's interesting is the timing of the separation of the attacks, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
multiple
Mm-hmm.
sclerosis because you have more than one attack
Multiple
on
different
your
things.
brain, right? And
That's right.
understanding that multiple sclerosis is that attack on the myelin sheath that is the network and the connectivity of your brain that sends
Mm-hmm.
neurons and
Yeah.
transmitters from your head to
Right.
your toe.
Right.
So for there to be so much time in between your attack. So for mine, when I was diagnosed in 2012, the next attack didn't was within I think maybe 2 years or less, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that is another reason, but I was already on their radar for it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right.
They jumped right
Exactly.
into the testing, they jumped right
Exactly.
into and it would really more than anything is an MRI with or without contrast, and getting in there and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
really having someone analyze the
Mm-hmm.
brain and
Mm-hmm.
someone that really is indebted and cares about you and sees you
That's
for who
right.
you are,
That's right.
right? And even with us, like we both had to adjust over time to what it was that we were presented with, right? So,
Mhm.
what is like one thing that it has forced you to kind of let go of altogether? And what's
I
one
got it
thing
all
that you
handled. I
and then
got
like
it all and not asking for help because
in addition to letting it all go, but what's one thing that you learned to appreciate too?
I got people that'll help me. I always known that. And I just was always the person that I do it myself. I got it. I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? But like when you really don't got it, when you
Mhm.
can't,
Right, because you're
when
talking
you
about now an
can't.
impairment. I cannot even see this in front
Mhm.
of me. The things that the
That's
colors,
right. I can't fill out this piece of paper. I can't
right.
fill out this job application.
And
It's
if they would
different.
have just like really, really identified and realized and said that this might be something different, that
Mhm.
time frame, because it's a very, very sensitive time frame in between the
Yes.
attacks. That's the
Yes.
thing. When the attack, the very scary thing about multiple sclerosis is that you do not know when it is going to attack, and that is the reason why they encourage you to
Mhm.
go on different
Mhm.
medications, whether
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
infusion, IV, whether it's
Yes.
Humanities of the world. They ask you to do that because they don't know when the next attack will hit.
That's
That
right.
next attack might hit that nerve that is connected to your
Mm.
walking.
Mm,
or your extremities, even in
mhm,
your case, your eye, your vision. So
mhm,
that is the reason
mhm.
why they do all of the studies on the medication, and it
Yes,
minimizes the attack. So that's the
yes.
part where it's just
It's
like a double-edged sword. Did you feel as though it was hard for people to believe you and what you were going through while you were going through it? Where you
yeah.
was like, Ebony, the person that, was vibrant, young, full of life, don't sit down for nothing. Did you
Mm.
feel like it was just really hard trying to convince people in addition
Yeah,
to
it
you
still
that
is.
it was
Still
really?
is. Still
Mhm.
is.
I am very grateful and thankful because of the way I present, because I
Right,
see other people around me that present different.
right.
With, and I'm talking about wheelchair, I'm talking about
Yeah.
assistive
Yes.
devices, I'm talking about even unable to, whether it's walk, whether it's see, whether it's even talking. What gets you through your toughest day?
Prayer and my family. That's the best way. That's the only way I could get through it. Because I got some strong women in my family. Um, and prayer definitely always works for me. So that's the only way I could get on up. I got a niece that's younger than me. Get on up. You know what I mean? Like that give me the motivation to get on up. Then I got elderly people that I work with every day, and I'm like, if they can go on it, like the most of them are in wheelchairs and stuff like that. Even though I've been through rehab and stuff like, outpatient rehab though, not inpatient rehab. Even though I've been through that, you know what I mean? Like it's the motivation that they done turned over as mean as they want to be, they done got up, so I could get up too. That get me through my hardest days, some way, somehow.
Mhm. The exercise, I know, one thing that we did incorporate, even
Mhm,
before COVID, we were
mhm,
exercising something hard. We were, we joined it
mhm.
together as a family, and
Yes,
really us championing and lifting each other up to just push one another
mhm.
forward. I know for me, exercise, is just like medicine. Movement helps because for me,
Yes,
I get numb still. And you ever get so numb
mhm.
that it hurts, when
Yes,
your hand
yes, that
falls
it hurts
asleep.
the most. Mhm,
So for me,
mhm.
movement definitely helps to counter some of those symptoms. And I feel as though whatever your regimen is, it's not going to be the same thing that works for you that works for me. But when
Right,
we
right.
mentally, push one another because we know what the other person is going through, that is
Mhm.
the support that helps get you through, right? And
Yes,
when we
yes.
were working out, we were pushing each other on the weekend,
Woo.
Saturday, 8 o'clock in the morning.
Walking
Um,
up them hills.
yes, yes. And those are the kinds of things that motivation is really,
Yeah.
at the center of even Know Your Bow. Knowing your body
Mhm,
speaks, but being fearless and
mhm.
those challenges and being mentally motivated to live an indelible mark. And movement is the medicine. And once I realized, wait a second, if I sit too long, I also adjusted. I began to make some changes at work, adjusting like my workstation as opposed to being dormant and sitting, in the chair.
Stand
I
up.
had the standing workstation,
Mhm,
taking the
mhm.
steps, just trying to get, because like I said, it just feels like your whole body is asleep at sometimes,
Right,
and
right.
you can't always use gabapentin and baclofen and
Mhm,
muscle
mhm,
relaxers and things of that
mhm,
nature when you're trying
mhm.
to actually be functional and at work.
Right.
um but I think that teamwork got us through together. um
Yes,
Sis,
yes.
I've had it, live vicariously through me, learn from me, and
Mhm,
I will learn
mhm,
from you as well. And
mhm.
that that to me was one of those. It wasn't a matter of, oh, okay, Dad, we both got it. What are we going to do? We never did that. We never, felt bad for ourselves or like, God, why is
Right,
me? It was just a
right. We
matter
pushed
of
through. Well, okay, this is what we got. Okay, then what we gotta do with it. It was
we
never
did
woe is me. It was
different oils and things of that nature,
mhm,
oils, and just understanding like where those triggers were.
mhm,
Even for me, like I heat is another
mhm.
trigger for you when you were saying like you were getting hot, and
Mm,
I think the biggest thing is once I could identify that this was a trigger, I was okay.
mm,
But before
mm-hmm.
it's like, what is this? What is this feeling?
Right,
Why can I feel
right.
this? And then also trying to show up and present as if there's nothing wrong. What would you say to your younger self before your first attack?
We tell myself to slow down, listen more. Everything happens for reasons and for seasons for different people or whatever. I still don't understand it at times. Every once in a while I still get mad that I got MS just because I'm too nosy not to be able to see. But I feel like I'm missing something because I don't know what's going on because I can't see it. But through that, I definitely use my other senses as well.
Some of your other senses might have heightened, even though the
Mhm.
kind of like the
Had
yes,
to.
that awareness of even who's in the room, looking
Mhm,
at
mhm.
and
That's how
smells.
I know who all my family is by their voice. I
That's
might
good.
not even see your face, but I know your voice. I know your
Right.
voice just like that, so I'm good with that.
How important do you
Um,
feel though it is to be your own health advocate?
Very important. But if you don't have the fight for yourself, to do it for yourself, like why? Why do you expect somebody else to help you through it? You have to do it for yourself. It's not over because it's
I think
not over.
it's not, and the part is just like, do we know how to be an advocate for ourselves? Right? Do we know
Mm-hmm.
what questions to ask? Right? If
Mm-hmm.
you even knew of probably one other person, who that that you were close to, and like the situation that happened
Right.
with,
Right.
be able to identify and ask more questions and things of that.
Mm-hmm.
It never dawned on me that you were experiencing MS because I
Mm-hmm.
first, right? I was diagnosed first. We
Mm-hmm.
knew our situation. We knew what it looked like. So we
Mm-hmm.
knew come up and present itself somewhere else. That's what that is.
Right.
So I feel as though actually being intentional is one thing, but you have to know the questions to ask, and you have to be able to know what to demand to say, okay,
Mm-hmm.
well, I know that you guys might be chasing the stroke option. However, did you take in consideration this option? Did you take in
Yep.
consideration
Yep.
that? Have
Yep.
you?
Yep.
And
Yep.
for the
Yep.
person
And
that
each one teach one too, because who would even know to ask them questions?
wasn't like you had a stroke and you went to a backyard doctor in the alley and said, hey,
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
in hindsight, if I would have even, been able to feed you some more questions to ask, like, wait a minute, is there another option? Never
Right.
ever
Right.
that there
Right.
was
Right.
something else it could potentially be,
Mm-hmm.
but one thing to, when you have, someone close to you and we can identify heart attacks, we can identify diabetes,
Yep.
those are the
Yep.
ones they go on our population, right?
Yep.
It's that because that's in your genetics, that's in your history, that's in your DNA, but these others that are,
Horns.
those buckets that we do not fit in is
Mm-hmm.
interesting because until you don't really know the biggest difference between us is the treatment and the identifying it at the same.
Mm-hmm.
My doctor started there. There's some numbness and tingling going on that
Mm-hmm.
there last week, and I need you to kind of get to the bottom of it. And he immediately started the testing. It's just interesting, the diagnosis, the treatment. I feel as though if we had a smaller window to understand like what was going on, that would
Yeah.
have minimized the chances of where you are now 10 years
Right.
back
Exactly.
with dealing with such a catastrophic event of losing your sight.
Is it going to get worse?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Mm-hmm.
does it take another attack for it to get worse?
Because you have flare-ups, right? You have
Mm-hmm.
things that trigger it, and then
Mm-hmm.
importantly, it's just like I don't ever want to live looking around a corner to see what's next, right? I don't ever want to
Mm-hmm.
live here. That's why, again, with KnoYoBoE being fearless and facing challenges, and I had to
Mm-hmm.
deliberately say, I'm not going to sit around and wait for the
Mm-hmm.
next. I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
leave Most High's hands, but I'm going to make sure that I'm as active as I possibly can to at least try and just, and do what I can on the home front to, minimize those things. We are two sisters who are both living with MS, and we're winning against it every single day. Winning for me may look a certain way, but what does winning for you look like?
Winning for me, is just pushing every day. I go to work. I don't
Because
get a disability check. You know what I mean? So it's like I
that
do
could
what
have
I have to
been
do,
out,
and
right?
that's winning for me.
That could have been a really easy option for you to take. Where you could have
It
sat down.
definitely could have.
That was a very traumatic time period. And there's times I know you wanted to just give up and just let this all go and say, you know what,
Hmm.
and let me succumb to it, right? Let me just
Yep.
collect everything I can. Let me stop working. Let me just, do what it
Yep.
let you do, because you came to my door when I was minding my own business, you know,
Hmm.
own lane, and now you've actually like MS for a small period of time until we could get to the bottom of the eyesight thing and understanding that it almost was consuming you and overtaking you. And I commend,
Hmm.
because you got out of that, and we got out of that together, I believe, as a family. But
Hmm.
it still was an individual fight, right? I can't fight. No one can step in my shoes, really, and no one, should ever try to step in the shoes of a person who is living with a silent disease. But I know encouragement is great, right? Like I said, we rally around each other and we lift each other up. But when you close that door, that's your battle. That's your fight.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I commend you for, again, like you said, not just sitting around and saying, you know what, let me go on and collect that check. That's the
Yeah.
easy do. Let me just check that box off when I'm looking for an employment, and I have
Hmm.
a handicap, so to speak, and I'm limited. You didn't limit yourself. You kept
Hmm.
fighting, kept going, and again, like you said earlier, I'm too nosy. I'm too no, and that's why this disease isn't probably sitting well with you, right?
Not
Because
at all.
are spirited and free people and fighters. And
Right.
so it's like, okay, well, if this is where you want to land, I'm gonna make it difficult for you, right? And
Hmm. Hmm.
like most people, I'm not going to look at, even when I'm wearing my MS paraphernalia, remind
Hmm.
people that I actually am walking around with it every day, and they look at me like double take, like,
What?
well,
Yeah.
it's like, that's not what it looks like. That's not what the
Right.
magazine looks
Right.
like.
Right.
Not when I the doctors, that's not what it looks like. And I feel as though we're here to change that narrative as much as we possibly.
Hmm.
But I
Definitely.
appreciate this time that we've spent together. In closing, we've shared so much. We've shared our struggles, our victories, our truth. Did you have any final messages that you wanted to leave with our viewers that are watching today who might not necessarily know too much about MS, and what it looks like, how it impacts, us as Black women? Any final thoughts?
Just keep checking on yourself. Take care of yourself. Know your body to see what. Oh, it's saying something different. Something must be going on. Let's go get that checked out. You are worth it to figure
That's
out
right.
what's going on. If anybody that has MS, keep fighting. It's not
Mhm.
over. That's about it. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And I want to encourage people to also be empowered for look into second opinions. That is really,
Mm-hmm.
really important, because
Mm-hmm.
doctors that we're choosing, right? This is our choice. And if in fact you are not getting the answers, if in fact that person makes you feel less of a person, makes you feel inferior,
Yes. Yes.
you have every right to stop. Thank you for your service, and you can take
Mm-hmm.
it to someone else who is more indebted to seeing
For
you for who
real.
you are. And I'm interested in the person who's going to get me to the bottom of what I'm experiencing, what I'm feeling.
That's
So,
right.
second opinion is everything. But again, thank you
Mm-hmm.
so much. I appreciate your time. Continue to fight that good fight. Do not ever let go. You know you got me, as always. But thank you. Love you,
Love
love
you,
you, love you.
sissy.